What's going on? Welcome to the 5-Minute Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Colton Olson, and on this podcast, we spend about 5 minutes, I say about 5, give or take a couple sometimes, breaking down and teaching you to apply psychological concepts that world-class athletes, CEOs, coaches, and elite military units use to take their performance to the next level. The key word here is apply. I don't want you to come here and just get a bunch of information and not know how to use it. I want you to leave here every day feeling like you have something in your hands that you can use right away to improve your life. Let's get to it. To start today's episode, I want to take you back in time a ways, back to when you were a young child. So think back to when you were a kid, back to when, you just got in your own room, you organized it the way you wanted, you felt like you were growing up, everything was good. Then one of your first nights in the room, you lay down for bed at night, the lights go out, you roll over, you look to your right, and you notice the closet door is about halfway open. You look into the closet and all you see is darkness. It looks like an abyss. And the longer you stare at it, the more you think about how there might be a monster in there. And that monster is waiting to come out as soon as you close your eyes. So you're fighting sleep. You stare longer. You become increasingly terrified until you finally call your parents back in the room. You tell them, you need to look in the closet right now because I think there's a monster in there. They come in, they flip the light on, they take a look, and there's nothing. They reassure you that you're safe, nothing is coming to get you, and that sometimes the best thing you can do is face the things that scare you head on, because usually your imagination is making the thing you're afraid of scarier than it actually is. So I'm thinking for most of us that story sounds familiar. Most of us have experienced some version of that. Some of us to this day don't like looking toward the closet or somewhere like that at night. The reason I bring this story up is because it represents an important aspect of human psychology. Our brains are very unique in the sense that they love patterns and clarity, which means, in turn, they also hate uncertainty, and our brains are really good at being creative. So this means that when we're faced with uncertainty, we like to make up stories that help us find the pieces we're missing in reality. Unfortunately, the stories we make up to create certainty are often negative. Think about the little kid looking in the dark closet. Technically, it would be just as easy for our brains to decide that there's a puppy hiding in the dark closet as it is to decide that there's a monster. The odds are equal, right? But our brain almost always goes to the monster. So the reason why psychology tells us that we do this, because we're wired for survival. It's a survival instinct. The ancient parts of our brains, you always hear these areas called like the lizard brain. Some of these centers, they still operate like we're living on the savannah, like ancient humans did, and that we faced threats like lions or people that wanted to kill us at any moment. So when things are uncertain, it still tells us that there's danger out there, that we're facing something serious, because it's what's most likely to get us moving towards safety. Our brain feeds us those scary negative stories because it believes that it's the best way to protect us, and it probably was way back in the day when we were facing predators like lions, hyenas, whatever else was out there, the really scary stuff. But now we don't face threats like that anymore. But that ancient response still comes out, and instead of saving us, it generally just paralyzes us and works to prevent us from overcoming the scary things we face. So this brings us to the last part of the story that I started the episode with, the part where your parents come in and they tell you that your imagination is most likely making the thing that you're afraid of scarier than it actually is. As humans, we love to resist the things that scare us. So this might be a new role at work, a challenge at practice, some emotions we're feeling and we're not super comfortable with, starting a new venture, anything uncertain or unfamiliar. Not always a real physical threat, but anything that's uncertain or unfamiliar is scary. We resist it because we think that if we don't acknowledge the power of our fear, it'll eventually disappear. But in fact, the opposite is true. Whatever we resist is likely to persist. When we resist these things, we fight against it, they gain strength, just like the monster in the closet. And not only do they persist, right, but they get stronger, they get scarier. Just like I said, the story, the longer you stare at the closet, the monster gets bigger and scarier in your mind. The same thing happens in reality. The longer you resist the emotions you're feeling, the nervousness, the fear, something like that, the more power they gain. The longer you think about taking on that challenge and don't, the more daunting it seems. You keep convincing yourself not to. So the lesson for today is Don't keep whatever it is you're afraid of right now hidden in the dark. You're only going to make it stronger. Engage whatever you're resisting head on. Work to understand it. Break it down in a rational manner. Work to understand why it scares you and then take action. And again, this could be anything. Something that you're facing now that just makes you nervous. Ask yourself, why am I feeling nervous? How can I break down these feelings? How can I formulate a plan to attack this head on and then take my first step forward? You need to get out of bed and go face the monster. You'll likely see that the idea of it was much scarier than the actual thing. So whatever you resist persists. Go take on that monster. Don't resist it, engage it. That's all we got for today. If you enjoyed the podcast, please be sure to subscribe. Leave a review. Find me on Twitter at RaidoPsych, RAIDOPSYCH. And I'll see you next time right here on 5 Minute Mindset.